welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I'm so grateful to have you here, sharing in this space of growth, healing, and transformation. If you've already subscribed to Loving Everything, thank you for being a part of this beautiful community. Your support means so much, and together, we're creating a space where love in all its forms can be explored and embraced. As you listen to this episode, if it resonates with you, I invite you to like the video and share it with anyone who might benefit from the insights we're diving into today. These conversations are all about expanding our capacity to love ourselves, each other, and the world around us. And if you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to explore my other episodes where we journey into love's deepest, most unconditional forms. Each one is an invitation to reconnect with the parts of yourself that are waiting to be seen, healed, and loved. So thank you for being here. Let's begin. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
It's been a good day today. Yeah, pretty chill. Lots of cleaning, kind of some of that like spring vibe of just setting up and chilling. So a good unproductive weekend in most regards, which is nice.
Good, because things haven't really ramped up yet. We did this intentionally.
Yeah. I should be doing homework. I'm not doing homework.
I thought about it. I have a 2 credit on ACT. It's a really good class.
Dr. Henderson?
Yes, I do.
Oh my gosh.
I feel very grateful for that.
Yeah.
I was on the waiting list for, I think I was like 15th.
Wow.
And magically, somehow, that many people got out of my way, and the heavens opened up, and the stars aligned, and I ended up in another class with Dr. Henderson. And you could seriously, like, I would love to have him on the podcast. I'm a little bit intimidated by it, to be completely honest, but you could just quote him like every other sentence. Like, I just have lists of the things that he says, and I'm like, these on their own are profound. Like,
yeah, he'll always apologize for going off topic, and I'm like,
no, please do.
Come on, 100%.
Yeah, he is probably one of the best educators I think I've ever sat across from.
Easily.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with you on that one. It's just like your mind is blown every time you show up to lecture. You're just like, holy shit! Like, this guy's got.
He is gifted when it comes to feeling passionate about a subject, making it so interesting, feeling like he knows everything about it, but yet he'll tell you he doesn't.
1,000%. That humility.
Sure. And then his genuine warmth and kindness.
Just like real.
He's just such a nice human. He's such a good person.
It's hard to find people like Dr. H.
It really is. It really is. I mean, it's not a surprise that he runs the department, but
I feel like I'm like next to a celebrity every time we're in his class.
Totally.
Right?
And I feel like all the women probably in the entire program are in love with him, in the sense of like,
I see that.
He's just such a great influence. He's such a great influence on
1,000%.
how we can be better at who we are and what we're about to do.
Yeah. Him alone is enough of a reason to show up to the program to learn those things, right?
I totally agree. And then, like, I hate to say this, but in comparison, other educators just aren't as good. They just...
How could you be?
They just aren't as good. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, okay, interesting intro. We probably shouldn't just talk about Dr. Henderson the entire time.
But we could for an hour and a half.
We're in school, for anyone listening or watching, we're in school together. And so that is how I met Jorge.
Yeah.
And Jorge is just a good human. He's just a good human.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It means a lot.
And I had the opportunity to get closer to you over the last semester, especially when we were able to pair off, get to know some personal things about each other, and be vulnerable.
Yeah, huge part of the program, right? It's like half the stuff you're going to learn is in that department, I feel.
I feel like it's like group therapy. It's like
Yeah, in a
group
lot of ways.
therapy.
Sure,
Yeah.
totally.
Especially, I mean, it's individual work too, because sometimes you're doing a project or, like, for instance, what I kind of based some of the questions off of or asked you for. But the individual work is powerful. Not every single time.
Yeah.
Of course, like research methods was not that way.
But could it be? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just glad I made it through and didn't fail. That was my main concern.
Yeah, survived.
Good God. Okay. So, Jorge, thank you for being here.
Of course.
Let's start simply. What did you love doing more than anything? What do you love doing more than anything else?
I bumped into the term leisurite recently. And what I love to do more than anything is to chill. You could find me anywhere in the world in a comfy chair with a good view, a drink of some sort, and a good conversation. And that's probably top 10, like number one thing I'd want to be doing.
Okay, so I have two immediate questions. Do you love to travel?
I do like traveling, but I don't get to do it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you would travel more often if you could?
If I could, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything on your bucket list that either you haven't been to or that you really want to go to?
I know Australia, New Zealand, I'm curious about.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, those two little corners. And
Although Australia, I could
yeah.
probably live without just based on the bugs.
They make it out to be like this. Like,
Yeah, it looks
deadly
beautiful
place.
in video. I mean, Bondi
Yeah.
Beach, certainly. But, the bugs. I'm not big on bugs. Same reason for Central America, that, like, scorpions, not really into that. Or big snakes, not cool. Not cool.
Understandable. Or giant lizards, also freak you.
Well,
Well,
at least the lizard doesn't want to hurt me in some way.
Yeah.
A scorpion might crawl on my bed. That's not cool. I'm not cool
Yeah.
with that. Even though I am a Scorpio, not cool.
Not cool with that.
Still not cool.
Stay away from me, brother.
Yeah, just stay outside. It's
For sure,
fine.
for
I've
sure.
heard some stories.
Yeah.
Okay, favorite drink in hand. What's your favorite drink?
Oh my gosh.
Do you have a favorite? Any drink?
Yeah, I do definitely have go-tos. Lately, it's been ginger beer
Ooh,
for the
ginger
non-alcoholic.
beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if I'm going to drink alcohol, it's probably going to be like an old-fashioned or a very simple.
Old fashions are delicious.
Yeah, that or just like good straight tequila, I think is pretty hard to beat.
Tequila is very delicious too.
Yeah. It's got to be good though. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm with you on that. Okay.
Heck yeah, I'm bonding.
I'm sorry?
I'm bonding over our drinks of choice here. I
Yeah,
like it, I
well,
like
we
it.
were in the I was in the addictions program with you, so you still drink.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, very moderated.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, it's not something that I partake in like hardly ever.
Yeah.
But if I do, I'm like, it's going to be nice.
Yeah.
It's
And
gonna
make
be
it worth
the time.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No Jose Cuervo for you.
No. Although sometimes you just get in the mood for like a really terrible beer. Rainier's kind of been like a fan favorite of mine here.
Pabst.
Yeah, just something like that like takes you back
Bud
to those
Light.
days, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, this is terrible. Why
When
do
I
like
couldn't
it?
afford anything more
Yeah.
than a 6-pack. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you describe what made you happiest as a child?
That's a good question. These are good questions.
Okay, yeah, I've only asked you two.
We're already off to a great start
it's
here.
gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, remind me, the question is, what
Okay,
was my favorite
can you
thing?
describe what made you happiest as a child?
Shoot. I think my fondest memories of childhood were growing up in the town of Tracy, Missouri. It's like population sub 200. It's basically a village. And my favorite thing, that brought me immense joy as a kid was being able to ride my bike down the streets with zero supervision, zero worry, about, getting hurt or being kidnapped, just having fun.
Complete freedom.
And stopping by the local mechanic shop for a Dr. Pepper and a Hershey's bar. He was my grandpa's best friend. So we had the stash, right? Pulling up, you'd get the goods, and then you'd go off and you'd bike off to the park and you'd sit there and hang out and find a good stick.
Stick? What was the stick for?
You just pretend, you'd be like, oh, in my imagination today we're going to go into this little world, that kind of thing. Or I'm going to build a fort, that kind of thing.
Cute.
Yeah.
So you had somebody to check in on you, so to speak, when you're out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Someone to check in with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a very tight-knit community.
Place.
Totally. Yeah. Very small working class town. We had majority of industry in that town was mechanical. So muffler shops, car repair, the demolition derby and the county fair was in that town. So during the summers, you'd see a huge influx of people, which was always a lot of fun. But yeah, those are kind of the American stomping grounds.
How long did you live there for? And how old were you when you moved?
I was about 12 and a half years old, and I lived in Tracy for about a year and a half, 2 years, while my parents built or finished remodeling the house that we were moving into.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay. Then they moved over to the next town over, which I thought was huge for the day, but it's only 4,000 people, which is still nothing. So that's kind of my frame of reference for North America.
Okay. And then you moved at a certain point, we'll get to it, but you moved to, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Cuernavaca?
Yeah. Yeah. Cuernavaca was my hometown in Mexico. My entire family at one point or another was in and around that area and in Mexico City. So after I was born in Kansas City, since my dad was working in Mexico, and my mom was, a United States citizen, we're like, okay, well, let's go, live down in Mexico with the rest of the family. And so lived there until 2008 when the recession hit and all the corporate jobs and the layoffs happened. And it was kind of like, well, no time like the present to just go back up north and spend time with family. And
okay.
Yeah.
So you lived in Missouri when you were really young, and then you moved to, I can't pronounce it without looking at it.
Oh,
Cuernavaca.
Yeah, I was about a month old. So I lived in Missouri for a month. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So when you rode your bicycle, that was not, I'm confused.
So it's a weird journey. You start out in Missouri, born, down to Mexico.
Okay.
Until I'm 12 and a half years old. And then back up.
Okay.
So that's like the stopping
So
ground.
2008 was when you were 12.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I forget there's that significant of a different age difference between you and I.
Just a baby.
You are just a little baby. Okay. Let's see. What's something you loved doing as a kid that still lives inside you today?
I think bugging and annoying people.
I have not seen this side of you.
Surprising, I know. Yeah. So in my inner sanctum of people that live with me or family members, I'm usually not cool, calm, and collected. I'm usually like a neurotic little spaz.
Really?
Oh yeah, and I just get so much joy from poking fun at people and messing with them and annoying them until they get mad at me, and then I'm like, oh shit, and then it's no fun anymore. But yeah, playing pranks, being silly, goofy. Yeah, I still do that today.
Okay. Tell me a childhood memory you've never shared with anyone before.
Oh my gosh. That I haven't shared with anybody.
Well, maybe not on air.
Okay, not on air.
That.
I'm trying to think how embarrassing I want to be.
Good question.
Because I could put out one of my funniest but most embarrassing childhood secrets, or I could choose something more moderated. Let me think on this one. Let's see.
Take your time. I'm going to have a sip of tea.
Yeah, get a drink. I'm not going to do that one, then. And it can just be a secret. It doesn't have to be embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can be embarrassing if you want it to be embarrassing.
I mean, I've always, you know what? We'll deliver it. Why not?
Get it.
This is keep in mind, everybody, I'm a child in this story. It does not reflect on who I am as an adult.
Or maybe it does.
Maybe it does. Yeah, so this is a story that I have thought of reserving for the day that I become like a stand-up comedian, which is never going to happen.
Are you going to become a stand-up comedian?
Never. But like
Have you ever done?
I've never done stand-up or comedy, but I like telling this one because it's a story that's like a long joke, more or less.
Okay.
So
I'm ready.
We're
ready.
Yeah, we're ready, right? I'm playing, and warning, this involves poop. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm playing at my friend Alan's house. We're in the pool. We'd just gotten done eating. Things are going great. You know, we're playing imaginary games. And all of a sudden, I get this gut punch. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, this is coming. So I look at him, and I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm like, what do I do? I'm not going to be able to make it into the house. Something's going to happen. And so I'm like, do you hear your mom calling you? I think she's calling you. And he gets out of the pool, goes inside to check. I hop out of the pool, run behind this tree next to the pool, and just drop the fattest log you've seen a little boy drop, like, ever. Right? To me, I was impressed. Pants back up, back into the pool. Just gross kid. Pretend like nothing happened. Alan comes back out. He's like, no, my mom wasn't calling me. Like, I don't know what that was about. And I was like, oh, weird, you know? Oh, and so we're sitting there playing, having a good time. I'm like, I got away with it. It's good. He's got this big dog with white fur, kind of like these carpets you got on the floor.
No.
You already see where this is going.
Oh, no.
The dog's playing with us at the side of the pool, just kind of like being a friendly dog. And all of a sudden, the dog stops. Like this, 1,000-yard stare takes over it. And it just beelines it for my turd. And in one chomp, it eats the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God, that's disgusting, dude. Your dog just ate its own poop. What the hell? It's like trying to blame it on the dog, right? And the entire time I'm like, holy shit, this is horrible. What makes it, the cherry on top of the poop cake, is that as I'm leaving his house, and this was the last time I ever talked to the guy or his family, because as I'm leaving the house, his mom pulls me aside and she's like, hey, if you have to go to the bathroom, you can 100% just come inside. And I was like,
she saw the whole thing.
She saw the whole thing. I was witnessed. And then I imagine, what happened after I left was that she went over to check to clean it up or something, and it was gone. And then
she knew it was the dog.
Alan probably mentioned that the dog ate its own poop, and then she put 2 and 2 together, and that's why I can never show my face in that household again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Quite a story.
All right. That was not the story I was expecting. And also, thank you for your vulnerability.
Sure. Yeah. It's one of my really funny ones that I like telling people. As a kid, you do the craziest things.
You totally do.
Right?
Especially because you want to hide your embarrassment and your shame.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm like, that was a massive dump, dude. I can't. There's no coming back from that. You know?
Well, amazing. Also, the timing of it involved.
Yeah. Just wild.
Yeah, maybe she held him there because she knew anyways, my mind goes in so many, you know what I mean? Maybe she since she was watching, maybe she was having a conversation with her son to give you the time to get back in the pool. But either way. Oh
my God. Maybe he knew the whole time.
Maybe he did.
Oh man.
Maybe he didn't.
The secondhand embarrassment.
His back was towards you and she was just conversing.
She's like,
I mean, who really knows? Who
Yeah.
really knows the truth there?
I mean, I do.
But kids do the true. Kids do the darndest things. I was
Yeah.
just talking about this in class with Dr. Henderson. Like kids do the darndest things when it comes to lies, like avoidance. We were talking about avoidance strategies, and like it reminds me of like when you're a kid and you lie, and the lie just gets persistently worse the longer you don't say the truth.
Yeah.
Or like we were giving examples of like how we avoid things and how it just makes the problem worse and worse, and it gets worse and is more significant. Yeah, so that's what it reminds me of, is like,
Oh my gosh.
you never could go back because of what happened, right?
Yeah. And it kind
As
of worked
opposed to
out.
just being like, I gotta go to the bathroom, I'm sorry, I'm getting out of the pool.
There's no way I would have made it. I mean, it was a solid like 25 yards across, to make it in the house, soaking wet,
Yeah,
into a
dry
bathroom.
off. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew, like, right then and there, as soon as it hit me, I wasn't going to make it.
Yeah.
And that was just,
I guess the real question is, what would you do today, Jorge?
I would have done the same thing.
No way!
If it was today, I would hope that I'd be able to control my bowels a little better.
Hold it.
I'm
yeah.
hoping.
Yeah.
But back then, I mean, with everything I had, it just wasn't.
It wasn't going to happen.
No, I was like,
It just
it's
wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
The most embarrassing shit happens when, I mean,
Literally.
no pun intended, happens when you're a kid too, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these like weird little happenstances. You're like, that'll be a core memory.
For the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. What was it like growing up in your family, and what stands out when you look back?
Yeah, that's a good one. Growing up in my family was an interesting time. I had incredibly hardworking parents that were very driven and very set on me doing well to also be driven and excel. So my entire life I was pushed. I got good grades. I did well. But I was an incredibly stressed out kid. And I was also huge into getting into trouble. I'd get into trouble at school. I'd go and do something at home. And it was usually revolving some prank or some conflict with another kid or something like that. So I'd get in trouble a lot, which meant that I didn't get a lot of free time. I was just grounded for the most part. At least later on in life, I felt like that was like a big theme. But I always felt loved and supported. And despite the drive there, I never questioned that my parents like didn't love me. So, there's kind of that like juxtaposition of like, holy crap, like that was a lot of stress to put a kid under. But, like I know that they were my number one cheerleaders, and that my parents, my grandparents, my family members, they were just huge about seeing me do well. And today there's a lot of those values that I'm really grateful for. So just broadly, I mean, I'd say it was a loving childhood, good parents, hard moments like most childhoods. And yeah, I mean, fond memories for sure.
So you grew up in Cuernavaca, Morelos,
Yep.
Mexico. What was living there like in comparison to your life in the U.S.?
Drastic changes. There was a lot of things I wasn't like super aware of as a kid.
Yeah.
That my parents kind of shielded me from growing up in Mexico. So as a European, colonist descendant in the country, much like in the United States, there's still a power structure, of which my family directly benefited from in privilege. So in Mexico, I had a very good, in some ways coddled, supported life. Over there affording a nanny or a house cleaner or a full-time gardener, like was not impossible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the amount of work I had to do there as a kid was like none compared to what I had to do when I moved to the United States. Big differences in freedom, too. As a kid over there, I just remember growing up with the fear of kidnapping, whether that was completely justified or not. That's what I was taught. And unfortunately, I mean, kidnapping is a pretty high crime in Mexico.
Yes.
So I didn't really get to live a lot of my life outside of a wall or a fence or a gate.
Interesting.
Yeah, there was always a wall, and the walls almost always had some spiky material on top.
Yeah.
So freedom was very limited and dependent on my parents and where they would take us. But outside of that, I mean,
like a gated community.
Gated community if you're lucky, but most of the time you'd still be living amongst the community, but you'd have your own like little
perimeter.
Yeah, it's almost like I call them like compounds because that's what the houses feel like.
Yes.
You know, it's like fortified. You know, it's a whole crazy thing.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it was a great place to grow up. Had amazing friends, an incredible exposure to culture and food that I'm incredibly fond of now.
Yeah.
My grandma introduced me to all sorts of different flavors as a kid. So now I have I'd say a pretty expansive palate, with the exception for some really funky cheeses. Most things I can handle. The really funky cheeses, that's a hard one.
Not a fan.
No, and so food was great. The weather, Cuernavaca is known as the city of eternal spring, and it's a really popular like vacation or retirement spot in Mexico.
Where is it in Mexico?
It's like smack dab central.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So about 2 hours away from the city. There's always flowers in bloom. You'd have the bougainvillea growing all over the walls, and the tabachines, which a lot of neighborhoods are named after, just these like gorgeous orange trees. Fresh fruit all the time. I mean, things that up here we take for granted, but down there is just so bountiful.
Yeah.
Then not to mention the cost of food down there being dramatically lower. Like you could get 20 tacos for $5. Come up here, you're lucky to get 2 for that price.
Yeah. And happy hour.
Yeah. 100%. So it was a very colorful childhood. And I'd love to move back there now, but unfortunately the political and criminal situation isn't really one that I'm like the most comfortable with, if I'm being honest. So as much as I love that country, it's more or less like something I visit and I spend time with, and at some point may reevaluate. But yeah, it's a wild place.
Should we go? We're going to stay out of politics, right?
I'd say for the most part, probably good.
Loosely, it's not. Is it feasible for you to travel back and forth right now? I guess that's my question.
I would think so. I wouldn't see why not.
Because you're a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, U.S. citizen, passport, the whole deal.
Yeah.
Obviously, I haven't traveled, so I don't know.
What about, is it your dad that is Mexican?
Yeah, he's a Mexican-American citizen.
He is a citizen.
Yeah, he's got the whole shebang.
Okay.
He's actually a pretty conservative fellow, I'll say, just to keep it broad. But he went through the whole formal process, and he's very big about it.
So you don't have to worry about that at all.
I hope. Being that he has dual nationality and he holds those.
Yes.
He's got a passport for both countries.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
So, I'd say.
I mean, there's no guarantees, but also,
no guarantees.
Yeah, but also he did that a while back. So
a good while back, and I think that I'll always be one to call out my own privilege and say that like I'm not as afraid as a lot of people are because my family's background is pretty affluent.
Yeah.
And I know that like if he were to get stuck down there, that is not the end of the world for him. Like
he's got enough family to take care of him.
Yeah, there's plenty of good stuff down there.
Yeah.
So, I'm very lucky to say that like we're gifted like that.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. So how does the people, music, and culture of that upbringing shape who you were and who you are now?
I'd say the music. I'm a big fan of beats. I don't know exactly what, but I remember a lot of like Cuban music growing up, very heavy on the African drums that were brought over and kind of became a central, like, how would you say it? It's almost like a bread and butter instrument for a lot of Latin America, where a lot of African instruments. So there's a lot of really similar, I don't know, I guess themes in the music, because Latin America has a very heavy tendency to have heavy beats and things that make you want to move and make you want to dance.
Do you like to dance?
I am not a good dancer. When I have danced, I've enjoyed it, but it's not something that you're going to find me like seeking out.
Okay.
I don't know, it's probably hard to imagine me like dancing.
I could see
You think so?
moving to music.
Yeah.
Like sitting in your chair with a drink in hand, getting into it.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, I'd like to learn like salsa or flamenco or something like that.
Flamenco.
Yeah. Something just like fun and jazzy and a little pompous, just to kind of have fun with it. But yeah, like even today, like a lot of the music that I will just have on repeat will be music that's got a really heavy beat theme to it, something that's just engaging like that. I'm also a big fan of the more old school, like romantic ballads or ballads. Ballads.
Yes, you shared your Spotify list with me, and I'm so pleased.
Yeah, those are fantastic tunes. Yeah, growing up, that's the kind of stuff that would be playing at like family cookouts or when I was at my grandma's house. Stuff that my dad still plays today. When I go to visit my grandma, it's still the stuff that's like playing in the background as we're playing domino. So very fond of just like domino, like dominoes.
Dominoes.
And so huge
I just
family.
like the way you say it.
I got you. I'll repeat it as much as you want. But yeah, and so like that's a big part of like the romantic memory and love that I hold for Mexico, is a lot of those beautiful tunes, culture, people. Everything there is warmer in a good way. But like the pros and cons of living up here, there's pros and cons of living down there.
For sure.
So
yeah, I get that. You mentioned some of this, but what were the relationships like that you witnessed as a child, and how did they shape your view of love, family, or trust?
That's a really good question. So yeah, my family obviously very loving, supportive, and I want to say that they instilled kindness and empathy and a sense of humility into me that I'm really thankful for, by having me and my brother witness harder things. So our immersion into different socioeconomic backgrounds in Mexico was not something that we were unfamiliar with. We like typically had very close relationships with the people that worked in our house. And so we had Mago. She was the first nanny and like housekeeper, manager. She was in charge of like everything. But we had an incredibly close relationship with her, and we still do today. My mom and her friends on Facebook and the whole deal. And so that really introduced me to a lot more of that traditional Mexican culture that is more heavy on, I'll say like native or indigenous cultural tones of being Mexican. A lot of people don't think about it this way, but most of the people you see in Mexico are indigenous human beings. Or indigenous tied. And so like up here, we make a huge deal and acknowledgement of honoring the indigenous people who, we pushed out, killed, and all almost completely desecrated and erased. But yet the immigrant, the the Mexican citizen is looked at differently. And I think that there's a profound respect there that is due to a lot of the people that were the subjected population to Spanish colonization, my family being directly involved. So in a lot of ways, those experiences with different classes, different subcultures in Mexico really broadened my horizon. I was exposed to a lot of indigenous languages in Mexico. Not that I picked any up, but you would frequently interact with people that spoke languages like Nahuatl. Or up north, my dad would work with the Tarahumara tribe of indigenous folk, and which, by the way, they're known as some of the fastest runners in the world, and they just about do it barefoot. It's insane. Check it out. But yeah, you got to bump into a lot of people like that frequently. And you would get to witness their language, get to witness their art, get to witness their food. You could stop at like a roadside little restaurant and you'd be having like made from scratch pupusas that are just the most delicious thing you've had. And it's this little old lady. You know, just cranking them
little
out.
grandma in the kitchen. Yeah.
So that really painted a really warm memory for me. I was also fortunately exposed to a lot of the not so pretty things, and my parents had me reflect on them and look at them to recognize, like, hey, you little shit, like, you got it pretty good, and we need to be as open and embracing of anybody that doesn't have what we have. We need to be giving. So we made a big deal about that, and I think that directly translates to who I am today and to the career that I want to enter. Because not only do I appreciate just the witnessing of those cultures, but I really, really like learning and just having all these little biases and barriers broken down and rebuilt over and over. I just think that's what makes life interesting, you know? It's a fun time. So,
if you could change one thing about your parents, what would it be?
I was wondering if a parent question would come up. I would probably would have encouraged them to be maybe a little less, I don't know what the right word would be or the kindest way to put it would be, but would be like maybe controlling, you know, and I get that in a lot of ways it was to keep me safe.
Yeah.
And to have me do well.
Yeah.
But then in a lot of other ways, I felt like I didn't really have a way to express myself.
Yeah.
And so I think that led out to a lot of my outbursts and pranks and getting in trouble.
Totally.
You know, being a little turd.
You were trying to create freedom.
That's exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'd probably suggest pump the brakes on that a little bit.
Pump the brakes. What about with regards to your ancestral lineage?
Now, this is something I'm learning more and more about as my dad digs up a lot of records and photos and has conversations with a lot of the older people in my family.
Yeah.
But in one way, incredible, right? You're like, wow, to have this history and these photos and this story that links us back to the foundations of the state, the country of Mexico, right?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Didn't you mention that they were at the Alamo? Weren't you telling me that?
They were alive during the same time that was going down, and they were major. My great uncles were major players in the military regime of the Mexican government at the time that was just coming up. They were, I want to say, one of them was the president's right hand man, a general, and then my great granduncle Estancialo that I remember, he was somewhere in that same sphere, but just maybe a little bit below his brother. And so that picture I showed the class of my great grandma Pilar and my great granduncle
Pilar.
Yeah, she's like the matriarch that's basically put me here today, right? And so that picture was her at her wedding with her brother. posing in his full military uniform and her beautiful wedding dress. And so it's incredibly fascinating to be able to see that. In a lot of other ways too, I think that it's driven me to both recognize and do better. I think that to do activism or do better in the world, there's a lot of recognition and acceptance that, you know, maybe our ancestors weren't the good guys. And, you know, that's just the fact, you know, it's not something that I'm sitting here like beating myself up over.
That, yeah.
But it's something that I will 1,000% say just about every time. And that my life and the way that I interact with my family today is very much centered on breaking a lot of those toxic generational traumas and traditions down. So, yeah.
Okay. You kind of, yeah, you answered that. What hurdles have you personally faced, and how were you able to accept and move through them?
Yeah. I think the example I'll use or the story I'll talk about was when I first got out of basic training and I entered my on-the-job training stage in the Air Force. An incredibly stressful time in its own way, but then at the same time I was trying to do full-time school. I was trying to have a full-time job as a salesman. All of these things and areas I was not good at. I was trying to be a pre-med student. I was getting...
You were pre-med?
For like a couple weeks. That's like what I entered as. And I got absolutely obliterated. Like I just wasn't ready for that amount of academic scientific rigor right off the bat. Like biology day one, there was already stuff to do over the summer. And I'm like, I had no idea. So sales did not go well. I'm horrible at pushing things on people. I'm not a salesman. If you don't want it, you don't want it.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if I know it's good for you.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so I kind of had a big coming of age moment when I was maybe like 29. No, it was probably like 19, 20, where I just like flipped my lid and I was like, things have to change because I feel like I have no voice and the decisions I'm making are to appease the standards of my elders, my parents, society. And I was just like, screw it all. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks.
That's the Jorge I know.
Yeah. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, obviously talking about childhood poop stories. But yeah, you know, it was like a liberation for me to say that like those standards weren't going to be keeping me down and stressing me out to the point that they were. I mean, my mental health at that point was terrible. Terrible. And probably one of the more dark periods in my life. But coming out of it, age. Right?
Yeah.
It's just those hormones or something. I don't know.
There were things
that's
going
a generalization.
on. There were things going on in my life that contributed.
Yeah.
100%.
Big growing pains, huh?
Well, I mean, our stories are similar in the sense that I came from a very controlling family too. So I was searching for freedom by going to college. And it wasn't set up for college at all. They kept us naive on purpose. They clipped our wings so that we wouldn't go far.
Yeah.
And I was completely unprepared because I was an extension of my mother, essentially. I had absolutely no boundaries.
Yeah.
So by 19, I'd made some pretty impactful decisions and some really traumatic things had happened to me.
Sure.
And so at 19, I was fairly suicidal.
Yeah. Life just slammed into you, huh?
Yeah.
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 That's a rough time, too, to get hit with stuff like that because you're really trying to absorb the world.
Or figure out who you are in the world.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I've been a kid and I've grown up.
And I'm supposed to, know what I'm supposed to be doing now.
Yeah. Saddle up for dead.
Yeah.
You know, figure it out.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, what the hell's up with that? But yeah, in a similar light, tough time. But coming out of it, I was really just reminded that, I get to decide what I define as success or as good living or as happiness in the fleeting moments that it happens. Nobody else can define those things for me.
Good for you for realizing that at 19. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was like no joke. I think my family was freaking out a little bit because I had like a reverse intervention where I sat all of them down in the room.
You did not.
And then I just flipped my shit on all of them. Just like, I'm no longer going to do this. Like, this is not who I am. So we don't talk about that day a lot, but I remember it. It was quite a day.
Wow. That's powerful. How has your family's legacy contributed to making an effort to make the world better?
Yeah. I guess one of the places where that might have started could have been my grandpa Jerry on my mom's side. He, towards the, I guess like later end of my tweens and teens, passed away from cancer. But throughout my entire childhood, he really instilled this value of not quitting and not giving up just because people tell you that there's no hope. So he was always like, go, do it. Don't say you can't. You don't know that. Give it a shot.
What an awesome influence.
Yeah. Yeah, he was quite a man. Really hardworking, blue-collar guy, aircraft mechanic, which is what inspired me to become an aircraft mechanic.
Cute.
So naively, I joined the military thinking I'd be doing good for the world and learned that that was just not my place to do it. And the experiences that my family had shown me in Mexico and the values they'd instilled in me really pushed me to do better and to learn both from like my grandpa and my dad, who has sold insurance for a long time and I believe does good for people. My mom, who's a teacher. A lot of people that work in human related fields have taught me that caring for people is a great way to make a living.
It's purposeful.
It's purposeful, 1,000%. And just those combined values really like drove me to say like, this is genuinely one of the only things that interests me enough to say I want to base my life off of this. Having worked in mental health fields and, with people with disabilities to a varying amount of degrees, I've just gotten to witness a lot of the beautiful things in life that society doesn't really highlight
or value.
And also,
Excuse me.
No, you're good. Get some tea. In a lot of ways, just witness the horrors of like the systems that we perpetrate on people that have no control over it. I mean, and yeah, those kind of things, along with like my grandpa's fiery, like, get it done, have been like, okay, like somebody's got to try to do something. And I guess I'll just join the group of people that want to do something to make other people, I don't know, I want to say the best version of themselves, because I'm not going to do that.
I don't think that's our job, as we're starting to realize.
No, definitely not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the perspective of going into the program and thinking like, oh, you're going to change people's lives. And then you're like, oh, maybe I'm not going to change people's lives at all.
1,000%. Yeah.
Maybe I'm just going to be a witness to what they're going through. Yeah.
1,000%. Yeah. A witness and a kind hand and friend to walk alongside with. And, if I can do anything, it's show up, I think. I'm not going to be perfect, but I'll be there, dead or alive. Count on it.
You're pretty good at that.
Thanks.
How has the generational trauma and addiction in your family impacted the way you see yourself today?
Yeah. The more I learn about generational trauma, the more I'm like, it makes so much sense. I mean, a lot of the like neuroticisms that I have and the high strungness that I, fight every day. A lot of that I think just comes from the amount of stress that my family has generationally endured to be where they are. And again,
Totally.
yeah, not glorifying this. They were not the good guys.
Well, and also,
But the
like,
stress,
you're
right?
not glorifying the fact that that's how they handled their stress either.
It's not a good thing. In
Yeah.
fact, suicidality runs deeply in my Mexican side of the family. Whether it's direct or just choosing to let go.
Wow.
Like it's a thing. And so those patterns, and maybe that's where I get my nihilism too, is just to say nothing matters, like let go. So I've been thinking about that a little bit lately
Have
too.
you?
Yeah, I'm sure that they might have been nihilistic in their own ways. But yeah, and I mean, wow, yeah, generational trauma is such a thing. Your parents carry it, and I'm sure your parents, like mine, and a lot of people aren't aware that they're carrying these burdens.
No awareness whatsoever.
And they just brand it onto you.
Zero awareness.
Yeah.
Maybe an inkling of awareness, but then, close that door.
No, yeah, don't look at that. Don't look at that.
No, let's not look at that.
Yeah. So unlike, generations before us, that's a huge thing that I'm really working on doing, is not closing the door on a lot of those things and really taking an honest look at them. I call it my backpack, and it's full of rocks.
Uh-huh.
Right. And each rock is one of those things we carry, and I can either choose to carry it or I can take it out and put it down. And sometimes you pick more rocks up and you keep adding, but you can't pretend that there's not rocks there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, but we see how that ends most of the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that why you went into the addictions cohort specifically?
Yeah. A lot of those turbulent years I spent trying to figure myself out and to feel better. The military was just like a really, really toxic, discriminatory, brutal environment, psychologically and physically, just due to the nature of the job I was doing. And the way that my brain and I chose to cope was to get into substances of whatever flavor, I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
And getting out of that hole and kind of putting my head above the water for a second really was all I needed to say, like, okay, things have to change. And it's not going to happen when I don't acknowledge that my individual needs and wants are valid. Like I can't play somebody else's game. It's got to be mine, and it's got to fit in however it fits in. And it'll work out, and so, yeah, getting into addictions was really, it is my effort to better understand those things that haunt a lot of people, and to deepen my empathy and understanding of those things so that when I show up, and maybe somebody else is in a similar situation, not only can I relate, but now my tool belt is a little bit better in saying, like, okay, I know how to dance this dance a little bit better.
Yeah.
And we see it all the time. Addiction's a huge problem. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a problem because I mean, there's many reasons why it's a problem.
Yeah.
But it's a major problem because, one, we haven't been shown effective tools to emotionally regulate. And so we've chosen substances that are legal or illegal to help us cope. And there's a lot of shame around that. But it's interesting to me because legally, if we went to a psychiatrist, they would just hand us something too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, like, we're just doing I mean, that's what I tell people that I work with. You just have been doing the best that you can with the tools that you had at hand. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all on an episode of Survivor, and
Yeah.
You know, your
100%.
parents might have handed you a shitty ass shovel when you were born, and they were like, well, it works and you can dig holes with it. But, you know,
Yeah.
eventually when you get to be 30, you're like, fuck, maybe I'll go to Home Depot and get myself a brand new shovel. Or this
Yeah.
therapist that I work with
Yeah.
handed me a new one, and
100%.
it works so much better. It's not like I reinvented the wheel, but at the same time, like I'm using a completely different tool that is more effective or
Yeah.
healthier.
Totally. Yeah.
Healthier. I put that in air quotes because, I mean, who am I to judge what is healthy? Certainly fentanyl is not a healthy choice, but I
Yeah.
understand now
Yeah.
what the draw is for fentanyl, and
100%.
I've talked to plenty of people at this point as to why they choose it. And when you come from a family that or an upbringing, or even don't have any community or don't have anybody to support you, that's why we have an epidemic. We have an epidemic because we're not taking care of people.
No. Yeah.
And our culture doesn't
a
support it at all.
not at all. Yeah. That culture bit is huge.
It is huge, right? Because we don't
Yeah.
have a culture here. That's our greatest. I mean, like, you could say that that's the most amazing thing about living in the U.S. is that you can create anything that you want, right? It's the land of dreams, or it used to be.
Yeah.
And so,
Sure.
like, that there was a lot of freedom in what was right and what was wrong in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And so there is no culture, there is no environment, there is no supportive way. And then our government certainly is not supportive, especially currently,
Yeah.
of taking care of people who don't have a safety net. They just don't have a safety net.
No.
And I mean, you could say I am grateful. And I am also very privileged. Even though I come from a background that is very challenging and estranged, I can access support
Yeah.
if I need to and want to, navigate all of the strings that come along with it. I'll just put that out there. But I can and do have access if I absolutely, but there have been times when I absolutely did not choose that
Yeah.
because this is total segue. I just on the way here was listening to, I guess the president of Uruguay just died. Do you know anything about this person?
No.
I didn't either. Okay. So for anyone listening or watching, the president of Uruguay just died, I guess, apparently, in the last 24 hours. And he was this man I'd never heard of who chose to not take a salary as president of the country, to live without running water in I guess you could say a hut in the middle of nowhere, because he wanted to experience what his people were experiencing. And a year ago, he got diagnosed with cancer and was offered the best treatment and declined it because he said, who am I? If my people can't afford this treatment, who am I to jump to the front of the line?
Yeah.
And
Huge.
I was listening to this story and I just
Wow.
started crying because I was like, what an incredible human being, first of all. But second of all, we lost him. And what an incredible disparity between who we are represented with currently.
Totally.
I have no idea why I got in this story. What were we talking about?
I think to like loop it back, to a lot of the addiction, I guess, like causalities, our touch on like society and the systems we live in, I think is a huge part of what we've been taught to turn a blind eye to.
Yes. Not taking care of our people.
No, and I mean, it's been eugenics and genocide from day one.
Day one. And that's what we're known for. And we're
Yeah.
like proud of it too.
Yeah, no, it's been,
But like not proud of it. There's a ton of shame, but also proud of it at the same time. It's weird.
it's a weird dynamic.
It
But yeah,
is.
like when you think of like alcohol, for example, being introduced to Native Americans, to
Yes.
suppress and quell them. That
Yes.
was a strategy Europeans were already using on other populations and themselves to subjugate masses and keep them from getting too rowdy.
Yep.
Like, okay, well, you can't be too rowdy now if you're too drunk to stand up. And today we see similar things. I mean, it's
100%. I feel
Yeah.
like a good majority, I wouldn't know what percentage because that's not my specialty, but a good percentage of the US, I would just say, doesn't have the fight in them, does not have the fight in them. That's
been
how I
taken.
look at it.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. They just turn a blind eye, or it's not their problem, or it doesn't impact them, so why bother?
Sure.
Or, I mean, we won't get into politics, but it's going to happen anyway, so who am I? Like, I'm powerless in the situation. How can I contribute to this? Like, just,
Yeah.
we're either, going home and having a drink to chill out about it, or we're, subduing it in some way with
Yeah.
with some sort of substance, even if it's doom scrolling on Instagram for an hour. But
Yeah. By
disassociating disassociating in some way by design, so that we don't fight, so that we don't I mean, I'm not saying nobody's fighting, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying so that we stay placated and that we stay just turning a blind eye to the unfortunate tragedies that are happening at a rate none of us can even comprehend
Can't even
or
keep
keep
up.
up with.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I saw a quote the other day. I just saw something on, I think it's Instagram threads that said, has anyone else said, what the fuck? Has that expression come up 200% more often since January than it has ever in your life? Like, that's generally, like, every time I even try to become informed, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Consistently.
Yeah. I mean, you open a history book even and you go back 20, 30, 40 years just to see kind of the road we've been on, and you could easily be like, holy shit, like what? Now, you can probably tell, like, what were they thinking? I mean, it's all about money
Yeah.
and control and power and those addictions to greed and being the top Homo sapien. But today it just translates into conniving, dark twists on how we live life. We're put down. People are marginalized and oppressed and exploited. A lot of our voice seems to be stripped away, by the day. And you're certainly not encouraged to have one. That's for sure.
Just medicate it.
Yeah, just medicate it. Shut it up.
If you can afford to.
If you can afford to. If not, well,
You're shit out of luck.
Yeah, eugenics 101. And I think that's just kind of the road we've been heading down, is if you're not privileged enough to survive, then you're here to work until you die.
Yep.
An early, miserable death.
Yep.
And that's, I mean, you could go down a huge rabbit hole on this topic.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we could do that some other time. But
Yeah. Well, not to get too dark, but also
Yeah.
it's what pushes us, or I think you
Definitely.
and I,
Sure.
or anybody
100%.
else I can't say that that's the only reason why we're all going into
That's a
being
strong flavor.
counselors.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I would say that is playing out in the background somewhere in the decision to try to contribute. Certainly, I went into social work with that in mind.
Yeah.
After living in Portland, Oregon, and I'm not a native here, and watching people complain on Nextdoor over and over and over again about the homeless population. It's like, first of all, I grew up, I'm older than you, so I'm Gen X, but, NIMBY, the phrase NIMBY was kind of a flavor when I was like
It's a huge flavor.
a little
yeah.
younger than you, but like as we were growing up, like that was like I had to teach my parents what that meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like As I ingest this kind of obliviousness to the problem, right? I There's a certain powerlessness of being privileged and not knowing what to do, but wanting to do something.
Yep.
And so when I got into social work, it was like, well, I can actually contribute. There's a way that I can actually contribute, and that the lens of my privilege is stripped away so that I can actually get to or identify or understand. Not that I am not a compassionate person to begin with, but like have greater understanding and empathy for why this is happening and what the systemic change needs to be.
Yeah.
And there's no way for me to understand that when I'm sitting up here on my hill, of privilege, and I'm looking down saying, well, why hasn't this changed?
100%.
As many people do.
I mean, again, by design. And I think that, our line of work does directly empower us to make change. And I'd argue that, any of us.
Or at least mitigate terrible circumstances or environments.
Yeah. And I think we forget too, like what change can look like. It doesn't have to look like you going out into the streets and burning shit down or doing something crazy if you don't want to do that. It can look like feeding your neighbor, taking care of your elders, showing up to community events, forming relationships. It can look like very seemingly normal things that really protect and make us stronger against those adverse moments. And, everything that we're being fed today, I think, is built to destroy that.
Yes.
And so I'd argue, anybody listening to this or anywhere else that is like, well, what can I do? It's
contribute,
just contribute. Have conversations, talk to your neighbor, get to know them, build community. And I think that is one of the biggest things I'm interested in, is community building as a form of healing. What are we without a community? Certainly it hasn't been working from what we can tell.
Yeah.
And I know that it's been huge for me. It's just kind of,
Okay. How do you think, this is totally a different topic, but how do you think machismo shaped the way you learned to be a man, and how are you trying to unlearn it?
Yeah. Machismo is a real nice flavor of toxic masculinity.
Let's talk about toxic masculinity.
Let's talk about toxic. Holy shit.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, as a guy that still, is very much not flawless in the term of toxic masculinity, let me tell you.
You seem pretty flawless.
No, I'm still perfectly flawed. Trust me. I'm put together. Okay.
I'll take you off your pedestal for a second.
Yeah. No, I'll say.
How about this? I am very impressed and also admire you tremendously for your deep sense of awareness.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I appreciate the recognition on that. Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I feel that machismo and toxic masculinity in general have really stripped away and destroyed what makes a good man good. I'm largely pretty gender neutral in my utopian societal view. But as somebody that identifies as a man and that thinks that there's nothing wrong with being a man, I encourage people to really reflect on what we were taught, right? That machismo being, you can't cry or show weakness. You can't really be that emotional. And when you are emotional, it's bursts of passion and anger and firiness to get things done and chop somebody's head off, and just, it's this energy of like, puff your chest up, you got your hair on your chest, like you're a man, you're a macho man, like
you're an alpha male.
You're an alpha. Oh my God, that whole shit, ridiculous. But it promotes a lot of the same things that like American toxic masculinity culture does.
Yes.
Being that Latin America
That's
is
why I asked
attached. But yeah, it is, I think, a particularly conservative flavor too of toxic masculinity. Not that there's anything even remotely not conservative about toxic masculinity, but in particular, it's a little bit more strongly tied to religious roots too, which I could then turn and say, like, well, the settlers to Mexico brought the church. The church and the people working for it, the conquistadors, they came through and obliterated any semblance of something that didn't look like it,
them.
like, yeah, I mean, let's talk about like trans indigenous folks. I mean, burnt at the stake and mass murdered in that country and along the Americas. If you didn't convert to Christianity or Catholicism, there you go, dead. To name all the like long-standing impacts of it, I mean, all of that stuff still ties into machismo today because it is a dominant, conquering male force that is, in my opinion, just so scared of being vulnerable and getting hurt that you do anything in your power to not experience that and to get what's yours because you're a man and you deserve it. And I could add a million angles to that too, but for the sake of time, like, yeah, let's just say that it's very prevalent there just as it is here. And my awareness to it also, I think, coincides to that snapping point. I'd been repressing so many feelings and vulnerabilities and expression. And when I snapped, I was like, I can't keep living like some hollow shell pretending like I don't have feelings and I'm not sensitive, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the beautiful things in life come from those softer things, come from those vulnerabilities, a lot of those big investments in quality relationships. If I want to be a father in the future. So I think that to be a dad, to be a good dad, is to be not a toxic man.
You're going to be a great dad.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
He's such a big heart.
And I hope to instill that in other men too. That to be a strong man doesn't mean
that takes strength.
Yeah.
Vulnerability takes strength.
Holy shit, it's so much harder than being angry and trying to put people down. Like,
yeah.
I'd much rather do that than, cry. Right?
Yeah, crying is hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really easy to lash out and be angry, but it's a lot harder to cry and get hurt. And so I think just the way that I move forward working with men is going to be to teach them what they know intuitively is good for them, to recognize the things that they're denying themselves in living how they're living, and that to be an even stronger, better, more capable man in every capacity is to fight those things and say, I have my soft spots too, so you don't have to get rid of all your hard spots. Let's just tone it down a little bit.
Pump the brakes.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Have you seen the movie The Mission?
I have not.
Oh, God.
The Mission.
We'll talk about this off air, but one of my favorite movies. Watched it in Catholic high school. I think you might appreciate it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And for anyone else watching or listening, it's a really good film.
I'm going to take notes.
Okay. But it came out in the 90s, so of course, yeah.
Awesome.
What year were you born?
96.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
You missed it.
It was just a wee babe.
Yeah, I don't even think you were a babe yet.
That's probably not even a thought.
It might have even come out in the 80s. It might have been like,
let's
say I started high school in 87, 86, 87, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So it might have been more like 88 or something like that. But either way, wonderful film. Put it on your Netflix list.
I need it.
What are you still healing from?
Gosh, I'm healing from so many things all the time. And I think the biggest thing that I'm healing from right now is just the amount of time that I've denied myself authentic and genuine existence. This wasn't something I was even living with until like 6, 7, 8 months ago, right? There was still part of me that was hiding in the shadows, not fully embraced and open. And now I feel that just by being honest with people, being vulnerable and genuine, I'm healing drastically. But holy shit, it has been hard. Like, probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it still is every time. So,
Being vulnerable.
incredibly hard. Incredibly hard.
Because you were taught not to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And then working for the military too. You know, you're taught strength.
Reinforced.
So it's been a lot of layers to break. But softening is needed. Anytime that I'm like thinking about putting my guard down and being more vulnerable, I literally will repeat in my head like soften, and I just imagine my body becoming softer, and that usually lets the feelings in a little bit more. But yeah, it's still healing from decades of living inauthentically in some way. You know, even if it's just slightly inauthentically, or maybe some years more inauthentic than authentic. You know, it's quite a bit of scar tissue there to work through. So,
to bring it back to Dr. Henderson, he taught us this week. He says, you say soften. He says, breathe and step in.
Yeah. Yeah. In a lot of ways, very similar.
Yeah.
Totally. That's what it feels like.
Okay, let's see. You've covered some of this, and we'll scoot forward. What's one thing your close friends most appreciate about you?
Oh, goodness. I'm really bad about taking praise, you know, or anybody saying anything good about me. I'm like, no, I'm the worst.
That you don't like compliments.
I'm terrible at accepting compliments. So I've been trying to be better today. Thank you for
You're
it,
welcome.
by the way. I would like to think that, like, my humor and just approach to life is something that my friends appreciate. Nothing is too serious to not sit there and say some fucked up joke, or to push through and just realize that existence is fleeting, it's temporary, it is not even a molecule of a fart in space and time. To not live it and be a little goofy, and to show up and say, like, I'm going to survive. I don't know how, but we're going to make it. And usually it involves leaning on those other people. I think they appreciate that. They're like, I'll be there. We're going to laugh. It's going to suck, but we'll make it out. You know, that's what I bring to the table.
I like it. You're dependable and reliable.
Most of the time. I'm not perfect either on that department, but I'm working on the boundaries.
Is there perfect?
There never is.
No, there is no perfect. I mean, I don't think you even need to put the disclaimer there.
Well, for anybody watching that thinks they need to be perfect.
I mean, I strive to be all the time, but, you know, that's just based upon my upbringing.
For sure.
Okay, what's something unique or interesting about you that only people close to you would know?
I think it's more of that, like, goofy personality stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I try to come off as
The
pretty
prankster.
regulated.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Like I
behind
said.
closed doors, like, I am making noises, I'm making faces, I'm
Oh,
poking fun
really?
at people. Like,
You are so not this in class.
no, not at all. People would probably be like, what the hell is wrong with that guy?
Ah.
Yeah, but, like, I'm, you know, just being a huge goofball.
A grown-up kid.
Yeah, and my partner Amanda likes to point out the fact that I like to perform for her. So I'll do, like, these, like, funny, in my mind, like, ridiculous little, like, dances or faces or moves, and, like, in front of her
Just to get her to laugh.
to get her to laugh or do something.
That's what I do with my daughter.
Yeah, and it's just so fun. And
Well, especially
so
when my
good.
daughter was like super serious during her teenage years. And so I made it
Huge.
a goal to try
Yeah.
and break that exterior on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it would sometimes just irritate the shit out of her because she really would, like, dig her heels in about, you know, about just being serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd be like,
Man.
dude, just lighten up. Life is not.
Yeah, life is
We're
not
living
that
it
serious.
like that, yeah.
And I should take my own advice because I can be a very serious person, but
Sure. I mean, sometimes you get that focus, right? And you're not thinking of that goofy side of yourself. You're
Yeah.
like, I got to get stuff done.
yes.
But that
Yeah.
goofy side could be helpful, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I would probably have more fun getting more stuff done.
Yeah, or not as much stuff done. I'm a big believer in not getting anything done. I'll say that.
Jorge, I should learn from you. What's one thing you wish more people cared about or talked about more?
Yeah, this is a really good one.
I felt like you'd have something good to say about this.
Yeah, there's a quote by, I believe her name is Rachel Corrie. She was a longstanding advocate for the Israel-Palestine conflict way back in the day before it became the conflict that it is today. And she died defending, a Palestinian family's home from being bulldozed.
Wow.
Got run over and horrible death, but she prevented a family from losing their home unjustly. And so her quote that lives on through her parents and through that community today is, they dream our dreams and we dream theirs. To remember that just like the dreams that we have, other people from every corner of the globe have their own dreams. So to think that my dreams are better than anybody's is complete bullshit, because just like I have dreams, they have dreams. They dream the dreams that I dream, and I dream the dreams that they dream. I want a happy family. I want a safe house. I want good health. I want smiles and happiness. They want the same thing. And so I'd like to encourage people to remember that and to think that everybody that we've ever vilified, even the worst of the worst, at some point in their life had little beautiful moments, that only they know about, or that are maybe captured in a picture somewhere. And to remember or try to think of those moments when we look at somebody like George Floyd, for example. Broke my absolute fucking heart to see a picture of him and his mom when he was a baby, when he was a little kid. Because that just sparked that exact thought of George at some point, before any of that stuff happened, had Christmas celebrations.
Yeah.
He had family hangouts, time with his mom and his friends. And to forget those things that make us human is exactly how we get to the point where we're able to hurt each other without remorse. And I would just like to encourage people to remember that, they dream our dreams and we dream theirs.
What's one topic you could talk about for hours without getting bored?
Oh my God. That is a loaded question. Shit. I could talk about so many little hyper obsessions. Amanda gives me crap about it all the time because I'll go on tangents about home renovations or the stuff that I watch on YouTube. She calls me an old man because I'm watching home renos and lawn mowing videos and stuff like that.
It's fascinating, though.
It's just sad. It tickles my brain.
I love watching people redo things.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
So I could go off about that. I could go off about my hobbies. I could go off on conversations like this that we're having today for hours. I mean, it's just
there's so much to say. Yeah.
So much to say and reflect on. And I think every time you kind of walk away feeling like your conversation was, even if it didn't hit and the other person maybe didn't see your point of view or you didn't see theirs, you at least know that you had that conversation and nobody died.
And nobody died. That's the measuring stick.
I say that all the time.
Really?
All the time. At work, something will go wrong. And I learned this from an old mentor.
Oh, and you're like, nobody died?
It's it's fine. Nobody died. Yeah, we didn't get this deadline met, or this didn't get done, or I shit the bed on this. But I'm but did somebody die? No, then it really doesn't matter. Nobody was hurt. Who cares?
I think that comes from your background of military right there.
1,000%. I learned that in the trenches. Jaren, if you're watching. Yeah, he was one of my old mentors in the repair and reclamation shop. And that field is largely an art more than a science because it's doing mechanical things to an aircraft whose components are being warped by pressure and gravity to the point where, like, what the directions tell you to do, it's not going to work. So Jaron, a renegade rule breaker to get the job done safely, I'd always scold him. I'd be like, dude, you're not following word for word what the book is saying. He's like, did anybody die? I'm like, no. And so and in that case, maybe not the advice to take because, like, that is some serious stuff. But I applied that to other areas in my life where, like, you just can't take stuff that seriously. Like, if you do, you will just crush yourself to death. You will never enjoy those little fleeting moments when they come because you'll be preoccupied with some bullshit metric that somebody made up that you have to complete, or some game chasing a piece of paper, or XYZ. Like, none of that stuff matters. When you're dead, man. You know, heaven, hell, whatever you believe in, you're not going to be here. So, you know, I don't know. Tie it back to just letting go. Nobody died.
What's something you've changed your mind about, and what helped shift your perspective?
Changed my mind about. I'd say generally, as I've grown, I've become more open to different identities, right? And the biggest changes in my viewpoints, going from like a Roman Catholic background who was taught to be homophobic, was thought to be religio classist in its own way. All those things were destroyed when I chose to immerse myself in community with the exact people that I was told my entire life to feel disgusted by. And so in working with the queer community, I really gained like a really profound appreciation and love for those humans. And I'm really happy to say that today, like, there's not a trace of that left that I genuinely harbor. You know, there's the stereotypes and the biases and all that bullshit, sure. But that, along with many other things in my life, you know, racism, let's see, classism, whatever, the divisive things that we're taught, those things have been combated directly by me showing up to those groups of people and just learning and witnessing and being in community with them.
Becoming more educated.
Becoming more educated on the whole thing. And so I'm not perfect, and it'll be a lifelong learning lesson, but it's one that I'm so excited to be on because every time you learn something new, every time somebody surprises you, every time you're like, holy shit, like what I was thinking is a little fucked up, you know, maybe we'll just change that. But at the same time, like, I don't beat myself up over it. You know, like, you need to approach these things with acknowledgement and honesty and compassion towards yourself to know that, like, dude, I am deeply flawed for my own chosen reasons and non-chosen reasons, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I'm not trying to be a bad person. And remembering those things and experiencing those cultures again, that's really done wonders and changed my beliefs from being more conservative and staunch and set in boxes to a lot more fluid and open, neutral, and welcoming, you know?
Same.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for the daughter that I was given because that generation has taught me so much
Yeah.
with regards to
Oh my gosh.
with regards to the LGBTQIA community. I'm bisexual. My experience, and my cousin was gay. But our experience of that in the 80s and 90s, it was a very different experience. And I'm not saying we're where we need to be by any means.
Totally.
But I'm very grateful for my daughter and her friends for educating me further.
And for having the compassion to do it without demonizing you.
Totally.
Right.
She's so supportive in the flaws.
Yeah. And the flaws.
And understanding.
So important.
Yeah. Of understanding me not getting it right all the time. And yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm where you are as well, but, you know, just really pushing through the barriers of what you were taught to believe as opposed to what is actually true.
Yeah, you go out there and you find that, oh, black people aren't that scary, dude. Like, they actually have such a beautiful, beautiful culture that, like,
They really do.
I show up to a lot of, like...
they're amazing. They're such an
oh, my
inspiration.
gosh.
Yeah.
I remember being the only white dude at a
It's
college party at a predominantly black college, and I was like, holy shit. But I was welcomed with such open arms.
same.
Wonderful times. And to say that, like, my closest friends, mixed families, and their reception to me, dude, when I was like a little shithead teenager, none of those things would have popped in my head. You know, I wouldn't have thought that. You know, I would have been stuck in a lot of those biased, racist, or deeply racist, problematic ways, right? But I am so happy that things changed, and I opened my eyes, and I got to witness and appreciate. And I think life's just good when you witness and you appreciate.
Yes. So much better. How much time do we have? Ooh, we're right there. Okay. So when you think about your future, what do you want to have stood for, done, and given by the time you're 90 years old?
I think, like a lot of my family, and this is a family member I failed to mention earlier, but my great-grandma, called her Gigi. Like her, and like a lot of my family, I want to be known for community. I'd like to have a street named after me like she did, right? Because you're that big of an influence on your town. I'd like to be remembered for somebody that gave a shit, for somebody that showed up imperfectly, problematically at times, and gave a fuck. You know, I want to be known and remembered for building those things, for promoting them, for championing them where I can. And I think that somewhere along the way things will work out if I just keep moving in that direction.
I see that for you.
Thank you. Yeah. It's affirming.
What do you love most about yourself right now?
I think I'm really loving how I'm holding life. It's a very like neutral approach that I've been taking to everything. Just in dealing with pain and hardship and challenge, instead of seeing it as a failure of my own character, I've been really watching it and appreciating the fact that I've just been trying to hold it, right? Appreciating that I have the strength and courage to say, like, holy shit, I am in pain right now. I'm not going to try to change it. I'm not going to tell myself I shouldn't feel pain. No, I should. And I'm just really happy to be able to say that I'm getting better at holding those things, right? So yeah, that's a big win in my book, for sure.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks. Yeah.
What are you willing to fight for, and why does it matter so deeply to you?
I'm going to come back right to community. You know, I am always willing to fight for my community. I'm always willing to do what it takes to make sure that my neighbor or my friend or whoever doesn't have the means to do something, that I do my best to try to help that. You know, like, I'm not Superman. I'm not going to like snap my fingers and everybody's problems are going to go away. But, you know, if you're my elderly neighbor and you need help moving boxes or taking care of your garden or something like that, or plowing, or, you know, plowing the snow in the wintertime, or shoveling it. That's the right way to say it. I'll be there, and I will foster that. So I will always fight to show people that, like, hey, these values exist. Don't forget. You have to practice them to keep them alive. And there's a lot to learn from other people on that too. So, yeah.
You're a good role model. This is why I called you a good human being.
Role model. I'll take that. I'll take that.
Well, you're modeling to others.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really my biggest
That's
thing.
what I meant by role model.
Yeah. And I hope that I can be that.
Yeah.
I really hope to teach in that way, not by
You
lecturing.
already do in class.
Yeah, I don't want to sit there and stand and just like preach at people. I want to teach by experience. I want to show you that, like, you can show up to places to learn where you wouldn't think that you're going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing that I wish our program did more, is to have us do things that aren't even counseling related, that just broaden our scope as a human.
Like
Service, really, and whatever flavor you want to take that in. I got to do a lot of environmental restoration. To me, for a lot of reasons, that's really fulfilling.
Yeah.
And it connects me to my community, and it makes me passionate.
Yeah.
And so I would think that by modeling those things, that hopefully somebody else is like, oh, he looks like he's having a good time. Maybe I'll try something like that too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You're impacting the people around you, including us in the program.
I hope so.
Yeah, you are. Finally, how do you believe we can bring more love into ourselves and into the world around us?
I think I would start with acknowledgement, and acknowledging your flaws, society's flaws, other people's flaws, but not from a condemning standpoint, but more just to say, I see you. And then from that point, deciding, what do I do with that information? I've accepted, or I've seen that maybe I'm not living my life in the most genuine way, and I'm not showing up to my relationships like I want to. I need to acknowledge that I'm not doing that. And then I need to think, how can I foster those areas? And a lot of times I'd say that to grow in love for yourself and others is to hold pain and sadness and grief and happiness, and to value those things when they come and they go, all of them. Doing so and acknowledging your flaws and being compassionate towards yourself, I think, is a good recipe for, managing most of what life tries to shove down your throat. And then for others, a lot of the same stuff, like knowing that everybody's got a story, everything is connected to everything, and that as insignificant as you are, you still have a huge role to play in the little ecosystem, microcosm of your existence. And to appreciate that, like, marvel at it, be in wonder at the fact that, like, holy shit, like, I'm here somehow, generated from flesh and bone
And stardust.
And we're here. If that's not enough of a reason to love other people,
I feel like
I'm
that's
sure
the
we'll
whole
figure
reason why
something
we're
out.
here.
Yeah, I'm sure there's other
We
responses.
get it
but-
wrong. People ask, what is my purpose in it? I'm always like, well, do the things that you love, and then create more love, and then create more love for yourself, and create more love for the people around you.
It's like
That's very well. Okay, it's not
like tending a
very
garden,
unique.
right?
What?
It's like tending a garden.
It's like tending a garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Cultivating more love and compassion for yourself and for your environment and for the people that you care about, and keep coming back to that.
Yeah. Tend it.
It's a good. Your heart is a great navigator. It's a great navigator.
1,000%.
Your mind, sure. It's great for like GPS and making sure like you make good
Quick
decisions,
decisions.
but like
Yeah.
your heart, Keeps you aligned.
It's that intuitive knowledge that a lot of us just like tune out.
Yeah.
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 People know. You're already the expert in what you need to do better and feel better and experience more moments of joy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just forget that we know those things.
Mm-hmm.
How could we know those things? How could I know what I need? What the hell? You know?
Well, and there are life discourages you.
Sure.
It can get very discouraging. You can get turned around and lost, and
Yeah. But what's in your head, you'll always own that. Regardless of what's going on outside.
Yeah.
What's in your mind, it's yours.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Thank you, Jorge.
You're welcome. This was so much fun.
Good. That was the whole point. That was the whole point.
Super fun. Yeah. And hopefully years down the road when I'm much more profound,
Please.
I'll come back or something.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah.
Thanks
I could
for
talk
having
to you for hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Shoot. It's a good time.
Okay.
See you.
Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting this podcast. Your presence here means the world to me, and I'm truly grateful for your time and energy. If this conversation resonated with you or sparked any questions, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing from each of you. Your insights, experiences, and curiosities always enrich this space. It's important to remember that trauma, often unseen and unacknowledged, can keep us from living fully in our joy. Through my intuitive healing process, I help release the weight of generational trauma, empowering you to reconnect with your true self and experience life in greater harmony. If you feel called to explore this deeper work, I invite you to book a one-on-one intuitive session or even embark on a personalized journey with the Phoenix Immersion, a 2-day retreat designed to support profound transformation. You can find all the details below. For those who've liked, subscribed, or left comments already, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your engagement means everything, and I'm deeply grateful for the connection we're building in this community. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. I'm excited for all the healing and transformation we'll continue to explore together. As always, I'm forever grateful for you, and I cannot wait to see what unfolds next. Take care, and until next time.